Welcome to lesson 2 of our writing. This week it's adding dynamic dialogue at term 3, week 2, 2021. Our learning intention today is to be able to recognise how quotation marks are used in text to signal dialogue and quoted direct speech. Our success criteria: I can recognise how quotation marks are used in text to signal dialogue and quoted speech. So, dynamic dialogue. The best part of conversation in a story moves the story along. Think about how Red Riding Hood and the Wolf, where she comments on his big eyes and ears and teeth. Without the narrator, the story still moves along using dialogue. Think about when your parents used to read stories to you and when they used to put on the voices of the characters that they were reading about. Stories don't need to be dull. We can easily add dialogue to move the story along and make it more interesting. Another word for dialogue is direct speech. This is when you write something your character says exactly how they are saying it. The reader knows that your character is talking because they can see the quotation marks, or the speech marks as they're known as well. Quotation marks, or talking marks or speech marks, are a type of punctuation. We use quotation marks to show what a character is saying in our writing. Quotation marks look like this. This is the quotation mark that you use when your character begins talking. And this is the punctuation that you use when your character stops talking. Let's have a look at some examples. So, quotation marks can be used at the start or beginning of sentences. For example, this one here says, "That dog is sweet," Mary said. Notice, I'm just going to highlight here, notice that the quotation marks are at the start and at the end of exactly what Mary said. Also, too importantly, any punctuation needs to go inside the end of the talking marks. So, for example, this one here needed a comma because the sentence hadn't finished yet. Let's have a look at the next example. "Would you like an apple in your lunchbox?" asked Mum. So we've got our quotation marks at the start of the sentence, a start of what the mum is actually saying, and at the end of what mum is actually saying. Notice too, the punctuation that we needed in this one was a question mark, and it is placed before the last quotation mark. Quotation marks can be used at the end of a sentence as well. Let's have a look at this example. "Jessica looked down the street. I wonder where the postman is what she is actually saying." So we've got a quotation mark at the beginning of what she's saying and also at the end of what she is saying. Notice once again, the punctuation is inside the talking mark. Let's have a look at this one down here. "Kurt shouted, 'Look out!'" Notice that there's a comma before the talking marks begin around the direct speech. And this one has an exclamation mark inside the direct quotes. Quotation marks can also be used in the middle of sentences. For example, let's have a look at this one here. "Quotation marks can be a bit tricky," Sahara said, "but I think I nearly understand them." So we've started with what Sahara is actually saying here. Oh, made a mistake here. The comma is actually outside. And then we've got the quotation marks around what she says in the end of the sentence as well. Let's see if you can add the quotation marks incorrectly. "Let's go to the shops," said Leo. So your task is to just think for the next 30 seconds about where the quotation marks need to begin, where they need to end, and where you are going to add a comma. Pause the video for a moment and have a think about that, and then restart it when you're ready to have a look at the answer. So this is where the direct quotation marks, need to go. Leo is actually saying, let's go to the shops. So that's where our quotation marks need to go around, and our comma is on the inside of the last quotation mark. Your writing task for today is to rewrite these sentences in your home study book or any book that you have at home and add the quotation marks. Okay, you will already notice if we read the first one, what's for dinner, Dad? There's already that punctuation in there that I mentioned that needs to be inside the quotation marks. The first one, Jacinda is actually saying, what's for dinner? So your quotation marks would go here and here. Sorry, they're not very good. There we go. I've done the first one for you. You can copy off this slide here, or you can find this actual sheet in Teams with the lesson. Good luck.